Hey everybody, it's Clint. Welcome to Sweetcast. And I want to talk about this. Kevin Feige is a few things. One of the headlines, one of the things you could take from this is that Kevin Feige says comic book popularity is not a factor in movie and TV adaptations. I think, though, the more I think about it, I think we all know that that's true, essentially, to some degree. And at the same time, maybe it's not. So that it's interesting in and of itself. Beyond that, I want to get to the interview here that Kevin Feige actually did and get into some specifics because this is very interesting. In essence, you cannot win. Wokeness is going, I don't know really where this is all headed, but culture as it exists right now, TV, film, everything, cannot continue to exist and also be woke. They are counterproductive. They cannot work. They are mutually exclusive. Okay? I'm going to go that far and be that bold. It's just true. So before I get into this, though, Downcast 3 Submerged is going to be live on Indiegogo on Tuesday, June 1st. And if you sign up to the pre-launch page and back within the first 24 hours, I put on here you get a free trading card, but I've been telling everybody they get a poster. You're going to get a trading card and a poster if you back within the first 24 hours. So sign up so you don't miss it, and I really appreciate that. Fatal is live on Indiegogo still. The main focus here is just to get the book finished, and Charlie is working furiously on that. The secondary goal is to get up to 100K, which we are slowly climbing towards. So thanks to everybody that has backed this project. I really appreciate you. All right, so here's here from Men's Health website. I want to say magazine, but it's on the website. Could be the magazine. I don't know. Does anybody read the magazine? But I thought this was really interesting. This is essentially an attempt to be woke and progressive, and it's never going to be good enough. So you got to do something else. So the conundrum that they end up finding themselves in is just unwinnable. So Kevin Feige sort of reminisced and looked back on his time with Doctor Strange. And the plan there was the Ancient One, which historically is an Asian male character. They decided to make it a female character. And then immediately people got upset because they said that he was whitewashing a character. So what is the trump card? Is it having a female character versus a male character? Or is it having an Asian character versus a white character? This is where we start going into a weird rabbit hole. Can't actors just act? Is that possible? That it doesn't matter what color of skin they have and what the role is. Can they not just act? If we lived in a society that you never saw any other actor except a white actor, at some point it would be like, seems kind of racist. I'd be down with that. It would make sense if you only had white actors playing any character at all, ever in any movie. That would be pretty suspicious. But that's just not the case. It hasn't been the case for my entire life. That has not been the case. Everybody, the mass population of the world is happy to see people of any race playing roles, any role, except for maybe the Chinese government, But beyond that, everybody, it's all cool. It's all good. But it doesn't matter. In this case, it's not good enough. So when you start playing with the race of a character or the gender of a character, you're always going to make somebody upset. So people fired back. Here's a quote. How's this for a quote? "We thought we were being so smart and so cutting edge," Feige told to Men's Health when they started talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Star Simu Liu, "We are not having to do the cliche of the wizened old wise Asian man. He's very wise, apparently. But it was a wake-up call to say, well, wait a minute. Is there another way to figure it out? Is there another way to both not fall into the cliche and cast an Asian actor? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. All right. So here's the thing, though. In storytelling, you often start with a stereotype. That's how it works across the board in everything. It's just that there are some stereotypes that everybody is going to point out and notice, and there are bigger social consequences. And as for other stereotypes, nobody's really going to care. They might even laugh along. Think about basically any dad in any commercial or sitcom. The dad is a bumbling buffoon. He's a moron. That's a stereotype. I would even say it's a negative and harmful stereotype. You could go that far, but nobody really cares. There's no social consequences to it, so it just is, and it'll continue to be. In this case, having an Asian character that is, the wise old man, is that a negative stereotype? I think it gets old if you see it too many times. I mean, how many Mr. Miyagi's do you need out there? So I get the complaint from a storytelling angle. What I don't get is the complaint from sort of a political, social, economic kind of angle. It's weird. That's the angle I don't understand. I don't think that it's a good argument. I think storytelling is probably the way to go. So how do you do it? Maybe, just maybe, you could focus less on the skin color of that person. Maybe, like in all writing, when you have a character that starts from a stereotype, you start to add other aspects to their person, to their history. You can add more to that character to make them a more interesting character, to make them more complicated. It's not really that difficult to do. But what they were hoping for is pats on the back by switching the character to be a female. That's what they were hoping for. All right, let's see. But it was a wake-up call to say, wait a minute, is there another way to do it? Of course there is. Feige acknowledges that previous wrong, while still believing that there's a clear path toward a better future that prioritizes more respectful on-screen adaptations and representation. Whatever that means, more respectful. Tomorrow, all of this could be disrespectful. So, I don't know. It just is. Can't some characters, especially if they've been existing forever, can't they just exist? Isn't that okay? Make them interesting, sure. Give them backstory, all sorts of stuff. But why change the way that they look and hope for points for it? Anyway, so continue on here. It says, in the story, he reveals that the story of Shang-Chi comes from a binder that existed since Marvel Studios' inception, filled with great characters who could make great movies regardless of how famous they were. Meaning that characters that literally no regular non-comic book reader knows about, they could still make great characters from them. Absolutely. And the best characters that Marvel has had success with are ones that they've focused on writing as good characters. And, I think most people, if you didn't read comics, you might not even know who Iron Man is. You might not even know who Thor was. It's possible, but the Marvel movies did a good job of introducing these characters to normal people. And because they were part of a greater universe, they kind of coast off the fame of some of the bigger characters, so to speak. All right, and since a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is now basically equivalent to a Disney-owned branch of the U.S. Mint, those are chances the studio is more comfortable taking. So this is exactly how in comics things have changed for the worst. And that's because they feel like they have something safe, they have this stable foundation. Now they can worry about these weird social things. They can worry about the color of people's skin. When they started out and when they made the Marvel movies so successful, they were relatively close to the existing characters from the comic books. They introduced those characters and they focused on the writing because the skin color, the gender, all of that wasn't really an option. That was already decided. So they didn't even spend time worrying about it. Now that they have that foundation, they're free to start worrying about that kind of stuff and playing with it. And they did it in comics. This is exactly where the downfall started. They started focusing on those unimportant aspects to storytelling at the expense of good storytelling. Feige realized early on that the popularity of Marvel characters didn't really play a huge role in determining the success of their film adaptation. This is the quote that was taken out that a lot of people were shocked about, but isn't he right though? It's not about the character and how prominent that character is. It's about their handling of the character. And that's because most people aren't reading comic books. Look at comic sales, so you can obviously see that. The studio had two early hits on X-Men, which had been the company's most popular comic for a long time, and Blade, which most people didn't even realize was based on a comic. That's true. That sort of proved early on that it wasn't about how famous the character was, but about how great their potential was for becoming a cool movie or series of movies, he said. And Shang-Chi has had a lot has had that potential for so long. Sure, there's absolutely that potential. So how this affects comics is, in my opinion, a little bit more damaging than how it affects film. I don't really care what characters they decide to make films out of. They have their own continuity, and they have done a good job. I think most Marvel movies I tend to enjoy. Not that I'm not so in love with them that I need to watch them over and over again, but they're entertaining for the most part, in my opinion. The danger here is that if you are a comic book professional and you read something like this, you think, all I have to do is make a character that has potential. That's it. If I make a character or a storyline have potential, then it doesn't have to actually sell. It doesn't actually have to impress comic book readers. All it has to do is impress Kevin Feige enough that he's willing to put it into a Marvel movie. That's all I have to do. The movies, I think, have been a crutch that have actually hurt the comic book industry as a whole because of this thinking. I don't think that the movies have to hurt the comic book industry, but that really seems to be what's happening, and it's because of this kind of thinking. Anyway, I'm going to stop it there. He talks a little bit more on, whatever the next phase of Marvel, but honestly, I think the best thing that could happen to comics, although I've said it before, I think the movies are, entertaining. I like them for the most part, but I think the best thing that could happen to comics is for the movies to stop being popular. I think once they destroy the film franchise, inevitably, if it heads the direction that we're all expecting it to head, people will stop watching them, and maybe they'll move on to, I don't know, sparkly vampire movies again, and that'll be the thing that everybody's into. But once that happens, the onus for comic book creators will be back on creating good stories, because that's where people are going to be spending their dollars. I think it could be the best thing. I'm afraid, though, it could be too late. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I think maybe a little bit longer video than I was expecting. Don't forget to sign up for Downcast 3 Submerge, launching on June 1st. Back it within the first 24 hours, and I will appreciate that so much. Help us. I just wanted this thing to reach its full potential. That's what I want. And then also Fatal is live on Indiegogo still. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.